We are going live, so let's see when it gets here.
It says live for 15 seconds on my screen.
Okay.
So I think
Well, it barely just told me live there. So, do you want to really talk about, different? Obviously, we're going to talk about different plays because there's a lot of chalk here. But do you just want to do you want to run the optimizer right now or show them what the optimizer's saying? Because I think that's really where I think a lot of people are going to go, and that we could just start off here knowing that this is, either this type of lineup is going to score very well and it's going to be pivots off of this that do well, or all these guys wreck out and this lineup doesn't do anything,
Yeah, so that's a good place to start with the base build, and you can make variations from that. So Austin Cindric's in this one, and then I got Brandon Brown, Joe Graf, Parsons, Gregson, Allgaier. That's it. So the core, for the most part, is Cindric, Brown. At least this is to me. Gregson, Allgaier. You can make slight variations from Gregson and Allgaier to a Ty Dillon or a Harrison Burton. It's fine. Basically, it's two place differential guys, Cindric, or you take Cindric out and you go with Harrison Burton. That's fine if that's in your core. I see Brandon Brown as being a very big piece. Anytime you build it, he's kind of the central focus of that. He allows all of this to work. So maybe the pivot is from him. I really like that play. And then you get to, it's just which punts do you want to go with? And if you got enough lineups, then you just say, I'll take some of this guy and that guy and just mix and match as much as possible. Are we on the same page?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I'm probably not going to run more than 15, maybe 20 lineups. And if I'm running these types of lineups here, I don't really want to focus on playing, the chalk plays at the lower end value range that everybody's going to go to, say like Stephen Parsons, Jesse Little. I'm just going to hit the ground running with plays like Chad, Matt Mills, maybe even, Kyle Weatherman and stuff. And, just for the off chance that the leverage helps me and that these guys actually do well. Otherwise, I see that this being a race that the winning lineup is either going to have a lot of duplicates at the top, or like a lot of duplicates for fourth, fifth, and sixth, or there's a solo takedown with like a random play like Kyle Weatherman at very low ownership that just happens to work his way through. And so if I'm building lineups, I'm just going to go in and aim for the plays that shouldn't quote unquote work.
Well, let's just focus on Weatherman. If Weatherman works, a lot of value has to fail. And I don't think we get to that point. I'd say that one's probably a little too far for me, but there's just a lot of these guys in that price range that can work. So we'll start the conversation there with those guys, which we're going to spend a lot more time on here in a second. I'm going to set the cut. You can put Garrett Smithley in here too. That's actually, you can't. I forgot. So if you're going with like Allgaier and Gregson, then the cut line is going to be Tommy Joe Martins for what actually works if you go through the math of it. If you go Burton, you go Ty Dillon, then you will be able to expand your player pool a little bit. But let's just operate under Gregson and Allgaier being the two guys that we lock in, since they have the highest upside and they're just as likely to score. You got to like Gregson a lot. Maybe you pivot off of Allgaier. You can pivot off of Gregson, you can pivot off of either one of them, but there's so many different ways to look at this. Let's just, for now, we'll talk about those guys in a second. But if you go with Gregson and Allgaier, as high as you can go is Tommy Joe Martins. And so this is kind of the range. Now, if Weatherman is to work, basically all of these guys have to fail. There's no other way around.
Yeah.
They have so much place differential. They're at a similar price. There's so many more ways for them to score just as many points as Weatherman. And Weatherman is in a really tight box, starting ninth. The performances have not been good to start the season. The performances weren't very good last year. There was the wave, the Kyle Weatherman moment in the middle of the summer. It crashed, and it has not come back. He is he's AMC. He spiked. He's not coming back. He's not GME, I don't think. So I'm not crazy on Weatherman. But that seems like the build. Should we just mess around with that? Well, let's take some questions before we decide. What do you think?
Yeah, so let's go through. I know Milton was waiting. He was asking about Barry. How does he outscore some of the back marker guys? And it's not necessarily that he needs to outscore the back marker guys. He needs to make like at his price. He really needs to work because you're sacrificing. You're building a lineup to get Barry in at his price of 7,800 or whatever he's at this week. Yeah, 7,300. Like you're going out of your way to build a lineup with Barry in it because you're having to sacrifice either up top at not getting one of the 3 10K guys or going really low in the value range.
So a couple of things about Barry. One, I think the big point is what you just made with the price. It's going to cut some of this top tier guys, and it's not the top tier guys seem really safe. They have plenty of upside. I just have a hard time not getting Burton, Allgaier, Gragson. And the only way I get as many of these guys as I can is I've got to go as low as I can, which I get it if you want to go GPP tournament and you try to be contrarian. But the second part is Barry that good? We saw him last week be decent in his first race. I'll give you that. But he did run into the wall. I don't think he's going to run into the wall here. It's a different group, so he's not going to have that problem. But he wasn't perfect. He didn't do what he was supposed to do in his first race. He just happens to make it into the optimal lineup last week because he got fresh tires when everybody was on ancient tires. So he poached a bunch of fast laps, gets bailed up by a caution at the end. He looks good, but starting 9th, even on a normal slate, I wouldn't be crazy about rostering Josh Berry. Well, now you've got him at 7,300 with a ton of really good plays in the back and some viable punts. He's not on the board for me. I get it if you're trying to be different, but a lot of things have to happen for him to work. Probably a wreck fest. And a wreck fest that affects some of the chalk.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up a wreck fest because Tim is asking, do you see, this race being a wreck fest today?
No, and full disclosure, I wasn't feeling well, so I went to bed at 8 o'clock last night. I'm an old man. I need to get rest. So I just know from the results page, I have not watched the race last night. I looked and saw that the first couple stages went pretty green, which is kind of what I was leaning towards. And then stage 3, you just never have any idea. So I don't know what happened in stage 3 last night, why it was a wreck fest. I saw there were a bunch of cautions. I don't expect this to be a wreck. The truck, there's a little bit more experience, and these cars are a little bit looser, and they get looser, and drivers are a lot more careful with these things. I think it's more expensive too. It's weird to think of it this way, but the funding in the Xfinity series is significantly lower, and I think that the lappers will be low. I don't see Wreckfest.
Yeah, I don't either. I thought the truck series would get crazy in stage 3, and it did, but I don't see that happening in this race here. Before we get to the other questions, because I want to get through, do you just want to say like the value guys that we both agree with that are the good plays or the chalk plays? Because I don't want people thinking I'm like playing 100% Kyle Weatherman here.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's just do our little draft here of ranking like we did yesterday, which the funny thing is with us ranking those value plays, I think all of them failed.
They all wrecked each other, and I didn't happen to be.
I mean, obviously, my out on a limb, be cute with Kraus, and again, I haven't watched the race, but I'm smart enough to look at the results page and see that it looks like Chandler Smith and Kraus didn't work for whatever reason. But then I also look, I guess none of them worked. But when did maybe one of them squeeze through? I don't know. I think they all failed, didn't they?
Yeah, a lot of the chalk plays wrecked each other, and I just happened to not be on them, so I had a good night. I was hoping that those idiots would reckon me, and they did. But so in this range here, and kind of how we're going to rank them.
This is if you are playing Gragson and Allgaier. Now, we might expand this in a second to expand a little north, because if you go with Burton, or I don't know if Ty Dillon gives you a little bit. So Ty Dillon will free up about $1,000. Same with Harrison Burton. So if you go with Harrison Burton or Ty Dillon, you can get almost up to, we'll say, Bailey Curry. But we won't do that group yet. We'll do those guys next. So let's just rank them. We're dealing with Martins to Mills. Best value play. Now, another thing is, if you play Martins, guess what? You can pretty much only play Mills. And as you go closer here, as you go down for these guys, more guys open up on the bottom because you have enough money. But if you play Martins, you can only squeeze in Mills. Well, once you go to Fincham, then you have two choices. Just giving that out to the people who probably already know. All right, who's your number one guy? And I put bold the guys I'm kind of focused on. I think Timmy Hill and Landon Castle are a bridge too far. But you go ahead.
I would rank Parsons first, Jesse Little second, Tommy Joe Martins third, Joe Graf Jr. fourth.
Slow down.
Oh, you have a little ranking thing. Oh, I didn't know you were doing that. That is
it's well, we were supposed to do it yesterday, and I just didn't have a call.
I didn't know you had that. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we got Parsons. Then who?
Jesse Little second.
Okay.
Matt Mills third. Tommy Joe Martins fourth.
Let me just. That talked up Joe Graf last week, and we still have not even ranked Joe Graf at $4,800. Why has
he's going to be fine? And while we're in this, so to give some info of how I'm looking at this race. So last night, I pretty much most lineups I had Austin Hill, Zane Smith, and Parker Klugerman in almost every single lineup. I'm attacking this race in a very similar fashion in terms of the guys priced up high.
How much John Hunter Nemechek did you have?
I had no John Hunter Nemechek. I had no Kyle. I had very low Kyle.
If you were watching the show yesterday,
I mean, you called it, man.
I didn't call it. Like, don't say that I predicted it, but I just thought that we need to give him a little bit more moving forward. And so, moving forward, John Hunter Nemechek needs to be on the radar. All right. So you had those three guys, and then that kind of set up your punt plays?
Yeah, so that set up my punt plays. So I'm attacking this race in a very similar fashion. So, and if I'm going to pivot, I'll pivot up high later, but we're talking about the punt plays here. This is how I'm ranking the guys based on how I'm getting them into lineups, really. So this is why Joe Graf Jr. would be fifth on my ranking here, because I just seem to not be getting to him as much as he might be a good play here and there. I would actually put Chad at 6. Okay. And then David Starr at 7.
All right. There's a lot to talk about there, but before we go down this, let's just hit some of these questions real quick, and then we'll bounce back to it.
All right. Any hope for Santino?
No. He looked terrible, didn't he?
Yeah, he's absolutely.
If you look at his lap by lap, I believe he was in the 30s for a lot of it, so that's a no for me. What we got next?
Let's see.
You're not going to put them on the screen? Give these guys their moment of fame.
I am. I mean.
Okay. I'm just not quick enough to look.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is a summary from yours. Lessard basically took out all as he was racing for that top 10. He was racing for the money.
You were right there. I can't believe that.
I can't believe that they raced as dumb as they will. Is my rankings based off of value? It's not necessarily. I mean, it's based off of value. Like, let me see who I have ranked highest at the back end here.
No, I think he's talking about right now what we're ranking here. When you're ranking, I think this is what he's saying.
Well, yes, but I mean,
1 through 7. Are you making this based on point per dollar? Are you making this based on trying to outsmart the field? What are you doing? Is it a mixture of both?
Oh, so this ranking right here is, I think, the highest upside, or not upside, but the safer plays. Like Parsons, I have him as my highest projected play in this range, and so I have him ranked first. I think he's going to be very popular, but we're just showing people where I think a lot of people are going to go.
Okay, so this is kind of safer, more of a public ranking.
Yes, yeah.
All right. I think there's a Brandon Brown question. I would be surprised if Brandon Brown is not one of the highest owned drivers. There's just no reason for him not to be. The price is too low. He's starting in the back for the first time ever. He had a mechanical failure last week. It's going to happen. Brown's had a couple of those. He's a small team, but he is a core part of being able to get to what you want.
Mm-hmm. There's a Ty Dillon Cindric question, but I'm pretty sure I'll answer that when we're talking about those guys. That's why
we'll get to those guys next.
The fading Reddick, I'm not playing Reddick. People are saying across the board Reddick's a great play in GPPs. I think he's a horrible play in every format, but that is just my opinion. I don't think there's enough upside. Like the way that he worked last week is everybody else in that price range failed in situations where they didn't have the place differential to keep him safe. Just like last night, you had Zane Smith, Austin Hill, and Parker Kligerman, just guaranteed place differential. I'm not paying up for Reddick. I think he hurts too many lineups with his price tag.
If he goes under-owned, then all right, maybe you would explore him in a GPP. Don't believe that this isn't a track that's going to suit him. This isn't, we're going to see what the Hour Motorsports cars are decent, but they're not JGR. They're not SHR. They might be able to beat half of the junior cars, probably not. Maybe he squeezes into the top 10. You're overpaying for that squeezing into the top. Late race restart, maybe we see what happens. But if it's a late race restart, it's not just going to benefit Tyler Reddick. It's just too expensive for me. But to go back to what I started with, if the ownership's really low, it's not going to be. But if it is, then yes, I would maybe consider him. But I dislike the play just as much as you.
Okay, cool. I think that's where we're at. Sterling brought up a point that he thinks he works out if Gregson, Allgaier, Rex. If that's the case, I think Harrison Burton and Ty Dillon.
Yeah, if Gregson and Allgaier wreck, then you're right. Harrison Burton and Ty Dillon would be the next to step into that spot, and that kind of takes your rosters into a whole different mold because you freed up a lot of money there. Which
I would advise that kind of area, that Ty Dillon, Harrison Burton is where I'm kind of leaning if I want to pivot elsewhere. Parsons over Colby Howard.
We're going to have to get to that in a second because if you're building the Gregson Allgaier lineup, you can't get Colby Howard.
If you take Brandon Brown out, so I guess I could answer
this.
Oh,
yeah, you would be downgrading, then there would be Brandon Brown versus Colby Howard. I don't think that's even close.
Yeah, so I'm taking.
You could. I mean, you're trying to get different. When everybody's playing the same people, you want to kind of go in a different route. It's not a terrible idea. It's worth exploring. Let me just real quick to say, if you did downgrade from Brown, no grade for me. He's the same. We're still not believing in that car at the moment.
Too expensive. I don't think he can pay it off. I think he'll finish 27th, 28th.
Yeah.
But that price is not going to work.
That's a ceiling too. I got to see more from the Jimmy Means car. They're bringing in sponsorship. Maybe it's going to pay off eventually, but it hasn't so far. LeBay's a no. Clements is a no. You can start talking about Curry and Howard as pivots to Brown, but I'm taking Brown over Curry. I'm taking Brown over Howard.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to our rankings if we don't have any more questions.
They're asking about Little and Graf, or Little and Finney Miller and Graf, and I'm sure we'll answer this as
we'll get to that in a second. I thought I saw another one on there about Reddick didn't have any fast laps, but that's not because Reddick wasn't running fast. That was because Josh Berry was poaching it all.
Yeah,
which you kind of predicted. You did. You were on that, so. You got a lot of the things right from that race, but ultimately it just didn't work out for you.
I've had far more success in predicting the two lower series than the Cup Series, so that's just kind of where I've always been at. So let's go ahead and go back talk about these value plays, because I think this is where a lot of people are being hung up on.
Yeah, well, the first answer is going to be the guys that are entering 150 lineups are going to have a bunch of these guys just mixed around. So I'm sorry if I'm breaking that news to you. You probably know. So you're at a disadvantage. But anyway, let's just talk about so these are your rankings. We'll just stay with this. Parsons is number one. He ran well here last year. He spun out, I believe, multiple times last week in stage one. That put him a couple laps down. Now, it's not cool. We don't want a roster driver that's going to spin out, but Homestead is a more challenging track. He never got back on the lead lap. I'm not going to overreact to that poor performance. He's got sponsorship with Dogecoin. It's got to be. I will at least expect him to have fresh tires for the entire race. I like Parsons probably the most. I don't know if everyone else is ranking him number one, though.
It seems like they are.
Okay. I think that's fine. He's right in the middle of the pack. He allows you to go in any direction. His starting position works. His price works. People are familiar with him. People are familiar with BJ McLeod. They know he's got sponsorship. That makes sense. Number two, Jesse Little. This surprises me a little bit that you went here. Why do you have him so? First question, are you high on him, or is it the public is high on him?
I'm high on him. I have him passing 9 cars, and I have Matt Mills passing 5 for those people that are curious of why I ranked them where they are. And the reason I'm ranking them is because, I mean, even our comment section, that people are like, oh, Jesse Little is racing this garbage vehicle. And yes, it is not a JD Motorsports car.
Sure.
But BJ McLeod, especially for the Xfinity series, he's getting a ton of sponsorship this year. And we've seen that these sponsorship dollars, at least with these lower teams, if you look at Mark Harmon's cars ain't just blowing up. They're not just wrecking. And I know that's scary, him looking at his lap data from last week.
Well, let's give him a little bit. Now, I think he did some lap rounds and wave rounds. At least he did he only finished 2 laps down.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I'm looking at.
He only finished 2 laps down. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, that worries. Well, look, Parsons was just above him. The only reason we feel comfortable with Parsons is because we understand that he spun out twice. Maybe there is a reason. If we had some information that said, oh, well, this is why he kind of struggled, then we feel a lot better. But we don't really have that. He starts 12th on this restart and then drops like a rock. Anyone out there wants to Google that up and look on his Twitter feed and see exactly what happened with Jesse Little, I'm sure it's out there. Maybe that would make people feel more comfortable. But we can't.
He stayed out on tires on that because I think he got a wave around or something. Right. I could be wrong. But that's why I'm so high on Little. And same thing with Matt Mills. A lot of people are disgusted with Matt Mills, but at 4,700, starting 31st.
Yeah, but the problem with Matt Mills is this is not really a sponsorship. But GF Electric's what he's had in the past, and that's not really real. I think that's some sort of family operation or whatever. That's what he always has on as default. I would not be surprised to see him not have a lot of tires or him just not have good equipment this weekend.
So I'm
having a little lower in my rankings.
I think Graf has a higher chance of outscoring Matt Mills. I'm playing him more for the ownership. How close do you think Graf and Mills are in terms of scoring? I mean, I know you have them right there, but like, what do you think it ends up being, like the difference between those two guys?
I think Graf outscores him. I'd say Graf is probably a real safe estimate would be 23rd, which is 22 points. I think aggressive with Mills is 26th, and so Graf beats him in that case. You got a lot more to lose with Graf, but if we're trying to win a GPP, that's not really an argument against. If you're just trying to cash, then yeah, don't play Joe Graf.
What are the reasons behind playing Joe Graf in your eyes? I see it. People just ran out of money.
He squeezes in the. I think he just barely fits. Let me look at the Optimer. The optimizer has $300 to spend in this Joe Graf lineup. So we can go up to $300. It gives you Parsons. So if you take Parsons, you then have 5,000 left. So if you've got the core plus Parsons, then it's down to these 4 guys. It's Star, Little, Graf, or Mills. Well, just build 4 lineups. See ya, guys. Isn't that really what most of you are going to do? Guess what? I'm sorry to break another story to you, but the guys that are going to build 150 lineups will have it's 5 lineups. They will have these 5 lineups.
Yes, yeah, they will. It's a very common build. I mean, even like my optimizers, like I can visibly see them, just down the line of lineups generated.
All right, so we've got something that says something broke on Little's car. So good news is it's bad news, really, because it broke last week with these cars. You can see that just compound. These teams don't have a lot of resources to deal with broken race cars and to fix them week after week, and so it just kind of gets worse. We saw this, like Tommy Joe Martin's breaking down every week. Well, it's because instead of preparing their car, it's just fixing this, and so you can't check as many boxes. If you have a good race car, you can go through your check box and make sure everything is good. Well, you don't get to do that when you spend all week fixing what went wrong the week before. But it's something. I feel better about Parsons, it was a driver mistake. All right. So then we go to, but if Graf's going to be the lowest owned, if you think, then I would gladly go there.
No, I think
if we're all going to have 150 lineups, then I would at least like to split the pot lower than anyone else.
I think Graf is high owned.
Oh, well then.
I think from what I've just watched and read today, I think Parsons in this range is the highest owned, and I think Graf is the second highest, just because people are trying to pay up for all these guys like Cindric, Reddick, Gregson. They're paying up and they're just being force-fed Graf. Almost the same thing that we've seen in the Cup Series these last 2 weeks, to where you're almost force-fed, a bad value play.
Yeah. I don't think these guys are that bad. We've played worse. We've got uglier worse. Let's talk, since we've kind of already skipped ahead. Let's go back, and you got Tommy Joe Martin's at 4th. I would say he's more of, because if you in this lineup build, he only works with Mills. And that means, just by definition, he will be played the least. He's also really risky compared to everybody else. He has to have a really good race. And we've seen him have really good races and just not finish well because he makes a mistake late in the race, or what was it happened last week? He ended up finishing 19th, but I think he got bailed out by that caution, didn't he? Wasn't he? No, maybe I'm thinking of Las Vegas last year. He might have. I don't know. It's hard to remember. Like, he always has these issues late in races.
He always runs really well and then he wrecks himself.
No, I'm thinking of Phoenix. God, I'm watching too many races. I'm sorry, folks. Into the Phoenix race, he stayed. Anyway, you don't need to hear that. And then you got Fincham. I don't mind Fincham. It's a sponsored. You got LasVegas.net. It's in the 61. They're all pretty close, to be honest. The only ones I would say are a little bit of a push is Tommy Joe Martin's for me. And we need to talk about David Starr. I don't know if he has sponsorship. Anybody out there? I jumped on the Facebook. I couldn't find any picture. If you find out that he's in a Whataburger car, okay, let's do it. If he is running the blank hooded Carl Long, I'm not interested. What do you think?
Yeah, same situation there. 5100. My issue with the Star play is if I'm paying for Stephen Parsons in this type of lineup, I think people will go to him just to not play Jesse Little, not play Matt Mills and Graf. And I don't want Star ownership at, over 8% or whatever. And so if I think he's going to get to there, I don't really want to be on Star because I think more people are going to end up playing him than we think.
With Star, I don't care about the public. I just care about one thing. If he is sponsored, then we know he's going to have a full complement of tires, and we all know that David Starr definitely needs the most tires possible. It'd be a real bad look for Carl Long to go out there unsponsored, but he basically posted on his Facebook this week like, hey, $2,500, you can sponsor us and buy us a set of tires. That sounds a lot like a desperate plea for help. And I haven't seen anything. You look at the entry list and it says MBM Sports for, where is he at? The 13, David Starr. We got MBM Motorsports. Doesn't look sponsored. If it's not sponsored, not in my pool. If it is sponsored, definitely in my pool.
I think it's very likely that we see Whataburger on that car just by default. Like, that might turn into new crash claims.
Whataburger's not going to do that to their brand.
If they cared about the brand, they wouldn't be helping David Starr after all these years. Like, I mean, this is like 6-7 years of whoever's helping him out with Whataburger.
It's a Texas like, here we go, breaking down Texas burger joints now. He has a close relationship with them, and like, they don't tweet anything. He didn't tweet any pictures of him eating cheeseburgers this week. I don't know. Okay. If it's got the Whataburger, I'm glad I'll roster him. And if we find out that, it's now a new fake sponsor, fine. Fair enough. I've learned my lesson. But I've got to get burned once by that. And I'm not going to burn me that hard. I'm not going to go 100% David Starr. We're talking about a couple lines.
One last thing you brought up in your video yesterday was talking about how close he was to going laps down last week. And I don't think we have an early yellow in this race. I'm just afraid that we see David Starr run, a lap, 2 laps off, or fall 1, 2 laps, 3 laps down in this race.
Yes, well, that's the case for all these guys too.
That is true.
If they go a lap down or 2 laps down, he's not going to finish. He's not going to be in 13th again. I can't believe that happened. I cannot believe, but it happened. Whatever. I don't know if Phil knows or not. Phil's looking at the same information as me. Maybe Phil is connected to Carl Long. I don't think so. He's looking at the same sheet that says he's not sponsored. Well, the same sheet told us last week that Chad Fincham wasn't sponsored, and then one of you geniuses out there, and I don't mean that disrespect. I mean that honestly. Like, one of you guys figured out, hey, Chad Fincham's actually racing. So.
Yeah, so like, dude, Carl Long doesn't care.
The thing is, like, we can't tell, like, and you know this firsthand. We cannot tell you what's going on sponsorship early in the week. Well, we can when it's obvious. But we've been doing this Carl Long dance for the last 2-3 years now. You don't know a lot of times till Saturday morning. So just hurry up and wait on that one. You want to expand our pool now to say, like, all right, you're playing Burton in that crowd?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that, because I think this gives, especially if you're entering 1 or 2 lineups. I mean, when you enter lineups and you do this type of stuff, you have to be willing to admit, or at least I go into this, like, I do not expect to get this money back. And so if I'm expecting a lot of chalk and a lot of people to go the same direction, these are the types of lineups I would make, even if it's just a one-off lineup in the $10 GPP. This type of lineup area is where I want to go. I actually want to start with Josh Williams. Just what do you think about him in general?
Well, let me interrupt, because if people are just tuning in, I want to go back over our core and show them why we're doing what we're doing. So what we're looking at are the value and the punt that slides in with this core. I'll punch it in. You guys can do this if you've made a copy on your sheet. So if you put in this core, I guess I got to copy it first. Hope I didn't copy over what I said. Allgaier, Gregson, Brown, son of a... I magically forget how to use buttons on the keyboard when I need to. I apologize for those listening, watching, whatever. So that's the core we're working with. It gives you about 6,200 per... Did I do that right? No, not Joe Graf. He's not in the core. Sorry. I'm working on it, folks. Bear with me. So this is the core. You can vary from Cindric. We're going to get to that later in the show. You can vary off of Gregson and Allgaier. So what we did with the first part was, if you play this core, you got 5,150 per driver. And that's basically this core here, which we ranked.
Yeah, and I think, like, this is going to be very popular. If you're just tuning in, these 4, I mean, that's going to be so popular. It's disgusting.
So the 150 guys have a huge advantage. So maybe you want to take a step, even though the 150 guys couldn't do this too, and no fault to them. It's within the rules of the game. You're allowed to do this. The next step is, we'll go with the guy that I feel probably most confident with, which would be Harrison Burton. Would that be your next guy? Yes. Or are you going? Yeah, okay. So, and we'll get rid of Allgaier. So now you got 57.
Wait. So, okay, let's talk about this right here. So if you're pivoting, why are you taking Allgaier off and not Cindric off first?
I just want to do... I'm going to save the Cindric thing, because the Cindric conversation is going to have to then also talk about Hemrick and Jones. You want to go pure place differential like you did yesterday. That didn't work. I mean, it worked to cash. It will work to cash. But if you want to win the GPP, I think you're going to need... We'll just get to that. We'll get to that in a second.
Do you... Okay, let's... It wasn't
right, let's go ahead.
Okay, yeah, we're already here. So
the reason I want to have this, I'm not saying that this is one of the ways. I find it hard to abandon a lap leader and a guy running fast laps. It's hard to do. We can get to that conversation. It is safer to abandon Cindric and go with Allgaier and those 3 guys. I completely agree, and that can work. But typically we have a lap leader.
So I think the lap leader is going to be Gregson, Allgaier. I don't think, very similar to how I thought Reddick would do last week. I don't think Cindric leads as much as we think he will. Like he has no one to fight with him at the start of the race, but Gregson and Allgaier should be there like within 15 laps.
No, you're crazy. You're crazy. You really think that they're going to drive up through the field that fast?
I think so, especially with...
They might get to 10th, but they're going to be 5 seconds back from Cindric at least.
Yeah, yes. So
they're not going to run fast laps. They're not going to lead laps in stage 1.
How many laps do you think Cindric leads in this race?
So I'm going aggressive. I think he pretty much controls the race. I mean, we can look at trends here and just simply look at, well, what's the typical number 1 guy get? 63 hog points. And seconds 24, 17. You can look at these numbers and see that should say a different number than it does. I'll fix that later. No time for that right now. Actually, whatever. I'll fix it later. Sorry. Those numbers are wrong. Now it's driving me crazy looking at the wrong numbers. All right. Don't do this at home, folks. I'm cheating. And that should be 17F. Cool. We're watching a guy working a spreadsheet. All right. So look, 81, 51, 86, 51. The number one hog or lap leader has never scored less than 50 points or 47 points in the last whatever many races. Now, someone's going to say, yeah, but that was Kyle Larson. That was blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you're right. But that's fine. That doesn't bother me. He has better equipment than anyone. But we're gonna table this conversation. We got to come back to this because I do want to talk more about Cindric. Because if he fails, like you're planning on, then who else is going to lead laps?
So let me touch on what we did here, and then we'll continue on. So I think Cindric leads 65 laps. Looking at the past, like the data we just saw there in terms of the hog points, I think that's something that we as DFS players need to almost get rid of, because that's when all the good guys were starting up front. All the good guys didn't have the opportunity to solidify, or who basically have guaranteed place differential points.
I disagree.
Really? Okay.
Well, I don't disagree. I mean, you're right that we did have really good fields. And we pop those up on the screen. We got to kind of go back to, 2019. Well, that's Christopher Bell. We'll go back to 2019, Kyle Busch. So that's to your point of, well, those are the big, powerful guys. Yeah, well, Tyler Reddick still had 30-some. Christopher Bell still had 22 fast laps in that race. Ross Chastain, now that's a 42 car, but is Ross Chastain that talented? No. Did he have a really good car that covered up for it against a bunch of Xfinity drivers? You know what that sounds a lot like here? The exact same race we're looking at. Ross Chastain in a good car against a bunch of crap Xfinity drivers. And actually, I mean, he's beating Bell, he's beating Custer. Oh, so he had track position. I don't disagree that there's probably better talent here. But when we compare things, Austin Cindric has a really good chance against this field of annihilating them. Really good chance. And if you're going to pivot off of him, I will consider going to we'll save that. I want to go back.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
I like this conversation. I just think that.
I took you off. So bring us back to what you want to talk about.
All right. So I'm going back to my core. Now, you disagree with this core, but I'm just going to stick with this. We can adjust it. It's not really that much of a difference, really.
Yeah.
This core that I have here is very similar to if you put Allgaier in. It's fine. But you'll notice we get a little bit more money. Now with this core and a little bit more money, we can expand kind of up to here. I don't know if we can go as high as Greg Gaulding. So I want you to rank just among this crew, the second tier. I don't want you to compare these guys.
I'd put Colby Howard 1.
Yeah.
I would put.
What was his issue last week?
Talent.
Oh, no, it wasn't. He got. No, who was it that got dumped? It was Vargas that got dumped. You're probably right, Colby Howard. What was Colby Howard's issue? I wrote it down somewhere.
I don't remember right now.
Mechanical failure, if I remember. I think he lost oil pressure. He got they were playing games, you remember, staying out, and they had track position, and he had a mechanical failure.
Well, I mean, look, Colby Howard started nearly dead last. This is a 24th, 22nd. We've seen this car run in the top 20s before.
Last week. He was in the mid-20s, mid-20s, which is fine. It's a JD Motorsports car. It's a 20 to 25th car. They play some games, and they are in the teens, and then he has a mechanical failure here. He was in 17th place.
I mean,
it hurts. I know I played Colby Howard. I know people in the comments played Colby Howard. It sucks. Yeah. But you can't just say I'm done with you.
And I'm talking about him in the scope of these players, because obviously if you're playing the core we just talked about, you can't afford Colby Howard unless you're pivoting off of Brandon Brown. But here I would have him ranked second, or actually he'd be first. Yeah.
Yeah, you can pivot off of Brandon Brown to make him possible, or he can become possible if you downgrade Allgaier, you switch, or you make those switches. All right, number 2.
Josh Williams.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So is this public, or is this you getting cute?
I think he does well. He's a top 18 car, top 16, top 15. We saw that a lot last year. A lot of the times he started, like 12th and 11th, man. He'd run in that position the whole race.
we kind of saw him do well at the beginning of the year. You can see that in his Las Vegas stats. But then during the middle season, it was not very good for Josh Williams, right? It was 22, 24, 20, 23. You got a couple good at the intermediate tracks. Started strong, finished strong. So maybe he started strong again. What did he do last week? That's what worries me. I don't think he was so hot last week. 27th. Concern. All right, number 3.
Bailey Curry.
This is tough. I thought you would put Curry at 2. It's really just the same situation as Colby Howard. Mechanical failure. Just about every part in his car broke last week. Again, sucks. We know Curry's talented. His car's supposed to be better, but his car failed. So when haven't we seen that happen before? You're just taking a punt in the back. It's fine. Number 4. This is where I'm really not that crazy.
Yeah, this is ugly. So I would put Jade here because nobody's going to play Jade.
Yeah,
like nobody's playing him at all.
He
was horrible, man. He's bad.
He wasn't. He was. Well, we got to put it into perspective.
He doesn't know what he's
doing. In wreck, he was just out there turning laps, which is scary. But that's a challenging racetrack. This will be easier. This will be a second race. The car did not fall apart. He didn't break down like Colby Howard or Bailey Curry. His car lasted. That's a very good sign. He'll be slightly more aggressive. I still don't like it that much. He also is one of those, like, I don't know if everyone was watching that race last week, but every one of these lappers would not get out of the way for Gragson. Buford wouldn't move. Tommy Joe Martins wouldn't move. David Starr, we're not going to rehash that, but, I don't think it's going to be a wreck fest if these clowns do this again. I mean, which very much could happen. A green flag lapper, we're going to get lap cars. We could see chaos at the end of this dumb race because of it.
So I actually have Jade highlighted on my own stuff as I need to play more Jade because I don't think he's going to be owned at all. And I feel like Jade is the perfect example of somebody who can work in a chalky lineup and be that low-owned person that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's the rest of these guys I'm not really interested in. I don't think we need to spend too much time on them.
What do you think Smithley does? Where do you think he finishes? I don't care what his DK stuff is. Just where do you think Smithley finishes?
18th best day. We saw this a couple times last year where he was in the Rick Ware / Bobby Dotter car and just didn't have good performances. I think at Charlotte, he was kind of on the edge of the top 20, but he didn't run in the top 20 all night. He just finally kind of got up there in stage 3 and then wrecked or failed. Finished 24th at Atlanta, 31st at Kentucky, 16th at, I don't think Kentucky 2 was the wreck fest though. So that was a decent race. What do you get? Who cares about Talladega? It's a no for me. It seems like our iRacing nerdy fanaticism is leading us astray if we're considering Smithley. Let's say that you can go up from Brown to Vargas. That's a pretty smart play in my book, if you can. And you might be able to, depending on your punt. But I like Brown a lot. At that point, you are just trying to be contrarian. I don't mind it. But then again, a lot of people are going to go there if they're doing this. That could be another core. Vargas might be pretty popular. I don't know. He was in 20th place. No, he was in 17th place before he got spun. It just depends on how deep the research is for people. And I never really know how much they're doing or if they're even listening to me. Finished 25th at Homestead last week, but that's because Santino wrecked him on the last restart. So if people look at the 25, well, even if you look at the 25, you're probably pretty happy with that. I don't know. Do you think Vargas is going to be popular? What do you say, chat?
Yeah, right. What does chat say? I have.
You seem to know the ownership inside.
Yeah, I wish we had real ownership.
Well, it gives us a reference point.
Yeah. I think we're doing a good job here, kind of ranking them. I think that's the best we can really do. Vargas is like the people that are playing Vargas they're either pivoting off of Brown or they really don't like the Brown play and they're fine playing for his place differential. Everybody knows I've been extremely hard on Vargas, and I still am. Like I think he's like a 23rd, 24th place guy.
Yeah, but that works today though.
Yeah, that works. It just can you afford that? Because if you're paying up for Vargas, then you're really at the bottom of the 5K range.
Yeah, it's just it limits your plays.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. Like you can't burn 2 spots on both of these guys. I believe they're both really safe in cash, but you can't burn those spots. You've got to get to the top, which is where we need to go now. This is probably more of a conversation I thought it was going to be about these top tier guys. And I'm going to, well, it doesn't matter. I don't need to set it. So we're not really on Reddick.
No.
Let's just talk place differential. I think we're in the same spot. Gregson's number 1.
Yep, number 1. Allgaier number 2.
2, 3.
Harrison Burt. Yep.
Okay. No one disagrees there. It's just a matter of what the conversation then is. Do you need Cindric? And I think the safe play is to go no Cindric, right? Or is it not? You could.
I think a lot of people are going to go. So this is, and I could be completely wrong here, but from paying attention to how people have looked at NASCAR last year without practice, if there's a situation to where it's like, oh, Cindric is going to lead laps or whatever, like everybody just like jumps on him. Like look at Sheldon Creed last night. He should have led, then he had that yellow and he could never get back up to the pole. Creed would have done very well if we didn't have that early yellow. I think Cindric is
remember some.
Yeah, you're good. I think Cindric is in a similar situation, but he doesn't need a yellow to not work. Like he should still be able to lead laps. I don't think he leads enough. I have him projected right now for 80 points, for 80 DK points. That's what I have him at, and he is my 3rd highest projected play.
You got him at 80, and he's not better. How many do you have Burton projected for?
I'm giving Burton 15 laps led, 15 fast laps.
Really? Boy, that's aggressive.
Really? I think Burton was fast at these tracks at the end of last year. This should be a Burton track.
If you watch Burton last year, he was not even a part of the picture, and then he went on unconventional tire strategy at the end of the fall race. So no one else pit. He did, so he picked up tires, and I think that's probably why he got some fast laps. And so that actually moved him. He might have run down Chase Briscoe at the end, but then there was a caution. Everyone took tires, and Burton was basically out of the race. Did he get some? Let me see if he got some fast laps.
Oh, Phil's here today. I was asking him earlier. Oh, hello, Phil. Thank you for joining us.
Where's Burton? He didn't even register any fast laps. So he should have been good at this racetrack. He said he was going to be good at this racetrack. He was excited about a setup, and they were fine. It was all Briscoe all day in that race. I think he can get to the front, but I don't know. They failed last week. The cars broke down. Something to worry about. They shouldn't break down 2 weeks in a row. I understand it's JGR, but I'm giving him 10. I don't even know if he gets that.
You actually have, so I have him with 15 laps led. That's 3.5. 15 fast laps. That's 6.5. So I mean, we're right at the exact same projection.
You do it in a way that I just need the raw number, man. I can't do that math in my head. Like,
and I hate the raw number. I gotta see. I hate the raw.
It's just water and lemon juice. It's pretty boring. There's not even any sugar in it. So just give it me the Hulk points next time. It's hard. So I got him at 72. You said you've got Cindric at 80. That 80 is more than 72.
Yeah, but look at all the other play. Like, so I have Gregson like winning this race. I'm giving him 50 laps led, 35 laps. Cindric is.
Wait. Cindric, you said?
I'm sorry, I'm talking too fast. I have Gregson as my highest projected play. I have him winning the race. I have him leading laps.
You just really believe in him?
I believe in this car. And not because of what happened last week. I just think he's the best car right now.
Maybe. I'm going to go defer to the defending champion with a lot more intermediate track. Has Gregson ever won an intermediate track?
I don't think he has.
Never has. Never has. And the ones that he's run well at are Homestead, and Homestead. He was okay. He was good here last year, but we'll see. I got to give it to the guy who's starting on the front row. All right, so here's the question I want to ask. And so if you don't like Cindric and you like those guys, like my initial reaction would be, if I get off of Cindric, then I think you've got to consider Jones and Hemrick as the pivots from not playing Cindric, more so than taking the fuel place differential lineup. Do you think that's something? I mean, obviously, I get it. You're on the place differential guy. I'm more of, I think I need a hog. Do you think these guys are viable options? Well, actually, what do you think the public is going to do? Cindric or full place differential?
I think they go Cindric, and then I think the main pivot off of that is Brandon Jones from what I'm seeing. So I'm like, if people are going to go Cindric or where they need a Dominator, they're going to go Cindric or Jones. Like, those are the only two guys I'm hearing about.
Well, let's just look and see real quick if you think the public's not going to go full place differential. I believe the public goes full place differential maybe before they go Cindric.
No,
I would say that the more chalky option is Burton, Allgaier, maybe someone out there. Like, it would depend on what the articles are saying, what people are promoting. So that would probably definitely just let us know the answer to that instead of us just guessing. But off the top of my head, I think just the trend to start the season with these lineups being set the way that they are, it's going to be is these play guys in the back. I think Burton, Allgaier, Gragson is the most popular. And then Cindric play is just slightly a little bit lower. There's more money freed this way too. It's easier to build a lineup with Gragson, Allgaier, and Burton.
Mm-hmm. I don't think Burton is being, because I think the play off of Cindric, I think it goes Cindric, Reddick, Jones in terms of pivots.
From who? Wait, the Cindric to Reddick?
Yeah, that's what I'm
seeing. You mean
rosters,
popular plays?
Yeah, like I think if people don't play Cindric, they're playing Reddick.
That's a big steep jump to get there, though. That's $1,100 more. Well, I mean, that's still stacking the back, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't know, and it's hard to argue. The one thing that I think we agree on is probably the lowest owned would be, let's say, a version of this. Now, this might not be the case, but like Allgaier, Gragson, and then Jones. Like, of the main core that were floating around. Yeah. Brandon Brown's going into every one of these lineups in my case. I don't know. Maybe no one's talking about Brandon Brown. I would think that that's crazy if that's not the case. But there's the stack in the back. There's the Cindric options. The lineup that gets off of Cindric doesn't completely stack in the back and takes Jones. It seems like it's going to be the lowest owned core and probably be the lowest exposed to the 150 guys. Do we agree on that?
I do.
Or Hemrick. Hemrick's part of that conversation too. I'd rather go with Jones, and I don't think you necessarily need them to lead. So one, yeah, it'd be great if they lead early. Probably not going to happen. Jones never leads races. Just doesn't happen. I think the one race that happened was Fontana, and he started on the pole and had just an awesome car, and you couldn't pass. Other than that, he's just not an aggressive driver that gets out there and leads a bunch of laps. Sometimes he's good on long runs. That's mainly Phoenix, but I think we're just going to need him to hang around and something funky happens at the end, and probably it's not going to be Austin Cindric wrecking, which I hate to do that. It's probably the same situation for Hemrick, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same situation for him as well.
And I hate to build a lineup hoping for Cindric to wreck. But again, if you play guys that you stack in the back, you're just hoping that the guys in the back drive to the front and then pass him.
They can contend. Like, I think so. I know you didn't watch the race last night, but Austin Hill, I think Austin Hill had the second best car behind Kyle Busch. Yeah. And it's not, I was telling people earlier, it's not that I'm purposely stacking from the back. I just happen to have the guys in the back projected to do well once they get up front. And it's hard for me to get off that mentality for whatever reason, these last two races, or yesterday and today.
I just find it hard for Cindric not to be optimal. If he's going to lead stage one, he's going to. Mm-hmm. And I don't see him dropping. Gragson can get up there on a long run, or even if he gets it on a long run, he's got to have a good pit stop and be fast on the short runs. Well, guess what? Cindric's going to take the lead right back on the short runs. We saw that last week. We see that pretty often. I don't know. I think it's hard not to play Cindric. I mean, what has to happen to knock him out of the optimal lineup for you?
He just doesn't lead over 80 laps. I think if he leads under 80 laps, he doesn't hit the optimal lineup.
And that's half the race.
Yeah, that's slightly under half. Yeah.
If he leads 80 laps, that's 20 points. And I'm going to assume that's at least another 20 fast lap points. So that's 40 points. If I give him 40 hog points and he wins the race, that's 86. Really, he doesn't have to beat every one of the guys in the back. He just has to beat 2 of them. I feel comfortable that he outscores Ty Dillon. Same page?
Yes.
You think Ty Dillon's going to outscore Austin Cindric?
No, I mean,
outscore, because we can build lineups with or without. The price is the same. Who has more points?
So I Austin Cindric.
Yes. Now, it could be close with him and Burton. But I don't think he outscores Gragson. I don't believe that he'll outscore Allgaier. We agree on that. So what he has to do is outscore Harrison Burton, Ty Dillon. I'm confident, 75% of the time in this race, Cindric outscores Ty Dillon. Burton is where the question comes in. So I've got Burton scoring 72 points. I've got him finishing second. I'm giving him 10 hog points. He's scoring 72. We've dialed Cindric down to leading stage 1 and stage 2. And I think we're being pretty conservative with 40 points. Could be a little bit more than that. He gets to 86. That's 14 more points than Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton, 10 hog points, finishing second. That's I can't go any higher.
I have him projected for the same. So this is, and it all goes back to the lineup that we first started this discussion with. That's going to be a popular build. It seems like the most optimal lineup that should, if everything goes well, Cindric should be optimal. The guys we talked about should be optimal. It's going to be very chalky and it's going to tie at a lot of places, and it might not even be worth it putting money into the contest if it goes that way.
Yes, you're right.
So, I mean, this is a situation where I'm just gonna, embrace.
Hope Cindric wrecks. It is Austin Cindric.
He is, and he's starting second. I don't even need him to wreck. Have a bad pit stop. Finish 15th.
That's not probable. Like if we're betting bad pit stops, he's not the one you want to bet bad pit stops.
Let's
also considering he's gonna have the number 2 pit stall too, and he's going to be in clean air. He's not going to have to deal with traffic like Gragson, Allgaier, Burton. He's defending champion, tons of money. I mean, every box. We don't know how well the junior motorsports teams are. We're probably a little too high on them. I think we talked myself back into Cindric build's going to be number 1, and then the stacking back is going to be number 2, and then number 3 is pivoting off of Cindric, which like really low in my book and really not common.
So I have the other person I have highlighted is Ty Dillon. Like I need some exposure to Ty Dillon because people just aren't talking about the guy.
Well, that was the same play last week and it didn't work because he failed, but he wasn't really lighting the world on fire, and he can still pull through because he just needs a good finish at the end. So I would still rather go with Harrison Burton. I mean, the same thing can be said for Harrison Burton, but Harrison Burton has a lot more experience in this car, working with his team. I like his crew chief. I don't even know who Ty Dillon's crew chief is at the moment. It's Gale, I think, is going to be is doing it. So he's okay, which is a good crew chief. Was it Jones's old crew chief? Demoted, lost his job. Now he's doing part-time work. I still like Jason Ratcliffe better for Harrison Burton. You're just going to have some Ty Dillon, I guess, is what I would do, like you said. I'm not excited about it.
Do you want to make a case for AJ Allmendinger at all? Or are you on the no AJ train?
Really? I don't. Look, the Kaulig cars have gotten better. They've now gone from 10th place cars to probably 5th place cars, but they have not demonstrated that even if they line up on the front row, whatever, they're going to lose the lead pretty quickly. I mean, we saw last week AJ Allmendinger, clean air, he got passed. I know that was a tire disadvantage. But it's not like he drove his way to first place. He played the pit road game. Last week's kind of a really bad point of reference with all the crazy tire swings that we saw. So people are probably weighing that moment. Oh, AJ's in first. Yeah, but how did he get there? And once the tire advantage wore off, we saw him just become not a part of the show again. So they've got a ways to go before they catch up. And I really don't think adding 3 cars to the stable was a smart move.
I agree. Do you have any interest in building around 9K and 8K guys, or are you just focusing on?
I don't, and that could be a complete miss by me. But the core was the core on Friday, and I figured, man, that's it. And then just a slight variation, that's it. A lot of things are going to have to happen to knock that core lineup out.
So I do have lineups made with guys specifically in the 8 and 9K ranges. Just but I mean, that's me. I'm hoping that the core line doesn't work, and if it does, I'm not going to be on the right side of that.
Real quickly on the Reddick question, we already touched on this. The reason we are not on Reddick is because A, he's too expensive. B, the car is a 10th place car at best. It looks better than it was because he was at Homestead, a track where he's just, 1, he's got more talent than other people. 2, no one is running the wall other than Gragson. So it's almost like people aren't even trying to compete. No one is willing to do that. It's a huge unfair advantage. So he got to 2nd place relatively easy. It's basically like everybody's running 3rd gear and he's running in 4th gear because everyone's scared that if I put it in 4th gear, I'm going to blow my engine up or whatever. I mean, it doesn't really, it's not a good comparison. He's not going to have that unfair advantage this week. All things being equal, which they're going to be, he's not going to outrace Cindric because he doesn't have the equipment. All right, that's my stance. I think you're on the same page.
Yeah, I'm on the same page there.
His ownership shot that price up. The algorithm sees him in the back. He was highly owned. They're just trying to not make him free square. They probably pushed him a little too much.
I think that, Reddick is getting talked about like all over the place. And so like any ownership to him is like too much, in my opinion. I'm not going to play him.
I got him at 70 points. That's fine, but I've got Burton higher. Burton is a pivot for me. And so then you're pivoting off of Burton to pivot to Tyler Reddick. So he's there if you're building enough lineups and if you're trying to, and we said at the beginning, all right, well, if his ownership's going to be low, sure. But his ownership's going to be really high. His ownership's really high, and he's like the 3rd pivot for me. So I'm glad leaving him as a 3rd pivot if everyone's going to play him.
Yeah, in regards to Michael Annett, I have building lineups purposely trying to get guys in the 8K range. I'm going to him more than Herbst, more than AJ. I know AJ's 9.6, but really the only guys in that range to play would be Sieg, Annett, Herbst, and AJ.
Hasn't been running well this year, though. You're hoping for some late race cautions. I know the first 2 races don't matter, but 12th rating rank last week. Actually finished worse than where he ran, but I knew we would talk about him. I mean, I think getting too cute at that point. Or because he's the furthest back of the cheap guys, but that's it. Oh, he's the first back of the cheap guys. All right, well, that says nothing of his car or his talent. I don't mean to say cheap guys. Furthest back of the 9K guys.
Yeah.
So, these other guys are no. Burton, just real quick, lightning fire. Burton, no. Haley, no. Moffitt, no. Clements, no. Josh Berry, no. You same page?
Same page. Don't play him. I don't.
AJ, no. Sieg, no. Herbst, no. Michael Annett, no. Can't do it. I know you're thinking Annett a little bit.
I'll AJ, Sieg, Herbst, Annett, I'll have ownership too, but they're not good plays. That's just ownership plays.
First stage link matter a lot for Cindric. So if Cindric wins the first stage, which is 40 laps, he's going to be first on pit road. More than likely, he's going to be first off of pit road. He's going to control the restart. He'll have clean air. I guarantee Noah Gragson is not going to build a short run car. Never does. If you look at Justin Allgaier last year, he struggled a lot during the fall race or spring race. He's kind of all over the place. And you look at the fall race with Allgaier, his car was terrible in stage 1. And his crew chief was telling him, just calm down. We're going to get there in the end. We know what we do. It was a little bit better in stage 3. Finally, when it cooled down. So Allgaier's not going to be there competing with Cindric.
Mhm.
Maybe Burton gets up there. I don't see who knocks him out in stage 2. And if they do knock him out in stage 2, it's going to be on a long run. I don't see that either. I mean, I'm not a big Cindric fan either. The team, the crew chief, the equipment, everything is set up really well for this team this year. This is the first real test. I don't care about last week. That's Homestead.
Let's see. I'm really far in the weeds here. I'm looking at where they are in pit road. I mean, this is close to not even influencing, but I'm just curious on where he is. He has nobody behind him, and he has Tyler Reddick right in front of him. So there's a chance that when Reddick pits, he might hurt Cindric's exit, because he's going to have to be going around Reddick every single time, and it's always going to be after he comes into his pit stop.
I think you're getting too deep.
I mean, I'm really in the weeds there, but
we're going to be fine there.
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's just look at it from the positive perspective that we've got a pretty small pool. We know who we like. We know I'll color code the main first run core, or we'll just make them bold. Cindric, Gragson, Allgaier, Burton, Brown. Burton's lower on mine. I think he's slightly higher in yours, but it's still, that's the core. And then let's look at our value core, which really is everyone at the bottom. Let's see. I mean, it really is, because we don't know. Like Parsons, it's crazy that we're like, yeah, well, Parsons is going to be fine. We are crazy people if we think that he is that much. Like, our confidence in Parsons is not founded on evidence at all. We have some evidence, but it's not enough to make anyone confident that he should be number 1. I know we ranked him number 1 because you have to rank them, but please do not say, all right, they said Parsons is going to be number 1 here. What do I got? Take him at that number out. Oh, I sorted it around. I'm sorry.
Oh, big rip. That's okay. We'll get
how do I want to sort that by pricing in? But what I'm saying is, if it sounds like we're confident in Parsons, well, we like him more than the other people in relation, but I'm not confident about any of these guys. Are you confident about any of these guys? But they're part of the core.
Yeah. There's a good chance that 3 of these guys in that range wreck or finish, or don't finish
great, or lap down.
Yeah, you know.
Are we putting Reddick in that pool?
I can't, man. I can't.
Mike Snyder, I think someone asked earlier, and I wouldn't be mad if you played Mike Snyder. It could work. It seems like, that'll never work. Just like Grant Enfinger, like I said earlier in the week, it looks like a terrible play that somehow works. I don't think he ended up in the optimal lineup, but he did sneak away at that top 10. If you get a bunch of wrecks, maybe, this RCR car is really fast, and maybe Mike Snyder has a good restart and runs well in clean air and gets just enough laps and stays in the top 5. Not completely out of this world. If you really are trying to get away from the guys that are building 150 lineups, Mike Snyder would be somewhere that I would look. All right. Ty Dillon's part of the core. If you can get to Vargas, but I'm not going to say he's considered. I'll put Howard in there, because if you're playing Burton, you can get to Howard. I'm not putting. I'll put Williams in. I'll be nice to you. Castle's not in there. Josh Berry's not in there. Joe Graf is in. Bailey Curry is in, but you got to go with Burton. David Starr is in, but we have not gotten an update. Is this a real? If you go to the spreadsheet at raceflipprize.com, you're going to get a real good. I mean, or if you just rewind like the 15-minute part, we went over punts really in depth. We can't go over that again, but if you want a thorough inspection of the punts, just rewind the broadcast here in a second, or you can just look at the spreadsheet. We literally rank them.
Yeah, go back, put on 2x. That's how I absorb all my content.
Dave Buford, if you can get. I'm not going to – if you can get up there, I'm not going to. He's really off the board. Yeah. You can play him if you're trying – like we talked about earlier. He also requires the Harrison Burton build, or playing the stack from the back. Mills, Little. You like Little more than I did. I like him Little. Actually, I might play some Little now. Fincham's in there. He's sponsored up. He's in the 61 Hattori. And then that's it. And did I miss any of these guys? That's all of them right there. So the good news is you've got a pretty solid core. It's a chunk from the top and it's a chunk from the bottom. We don't know who's going to fail. We don't know who's going to wreck. We don't know who's going to get the lucky dog. We don't know who's just going to barely hang on. But whoever it is will be the value that works. And then it just comes down to, does Cindric control the race? If he does, it's the Cindric Braxton, Allgaier train. If he doesn't, then there's a chance that it's either the Harrison, Burton, Brown, Gregson, Allgaier, same punts in the back. Or and you can put Dillon in there. I think Harrison Burton succeeds more often. Or the really extreme, probably a lot lower owned version is the Jones, Brown, Gregson, Allgaier. Now, maybe with the savings of Jones, you may get off of Brandon Brown. That's a possibility. I haven't really toyed around with that because it's lesser. I might build like 2 lineups like that. I think we covered everything.
I think we did. This has been one of our best episodes. Very chalky. A lot of chalk plays. It's going to be
not enough arguing, but that's because we think it's. What is there to argue with?
Yeah, it's tough. Any last questions before we call it here? We still got about 3 hours till lock, so you guys still have plenty of time to make lineups.
I would really love to know if that David. I'm going to look on Twitter. I don't think I'm going to find anything with Carl Long. I don't have a Twitter account anymore. I was trying to look at it. A lot of stuff he doesn't even update. So if I look at David Starr, if David Starr's not tweeting pictures of himself promoting a thing, then that's not a good sign, is it? Like he should be. If he had a sponsor, he would be talking about, he's got a sponsor, folks. DAS Associates, Inc. Can I bring this onto the screen? So if you go to David Starr's Twitter, 19 minutes ago, like I told you folks earlier.
It's always when we're on the show. It's never.
Hey, at least we got to it. So this thing it's wrapped and ready to roll. It's got like 17 sponsors too.
Jeez.
Let me see.
That's an ugly car.
Oh, no, that's not going to work. I can't put it on here. But you pulled it up, right?
Yeah, the 13. Yeah.
That's sponsored up, isn't it? We agree?
Yeah.
It's going to have tires for the entire race.
Yeah.
If you can hang on to the lead lap.
That's weird. That's interesting.
It just bumps him up a little bit. He still has to get lucky and hang on to the lead lap, but that's the same thing as everybody in this group.
I think that adds, because I'm in some other Discords, and I guarantee you it's going to be sponsor has a sponsor. You got to play him, and we're going to see a lot of David Starr shot.
I'm not on the Discords. I'm not working, but I guarantee this thing's like, oh God, David Starr's in the lineup. From like the nerds of us out there reacting to tweets, but it's real. This is something that is legitimate. If it was completely blank, I would take his ownership down. I still have him at a projection of 23. He's neck and neck with Graf in my book and works with Parsons. So it's going to go back to right where we were. It really doesn't change things. I was already building the Star lineup. I was already building the Graf lineup.
So I already have 12 lineups made right now. And I don't have Star in any of them, and I might just want to get off anything to do with Star.
You're really going to pivot off of Star. How many people do you think are changing their lineups the day of anymore? Because you don't have to do that. You can build your lineup now when salaries come out, and there's really not many changes. This is not like in the past where you could only build lineups for 15 minutes. Let's look at his intermediate tracks last year. 14th at Texas in the Bobby Dotter car. That's his hometown track. Usually ran well there. 24th at Kansas. That's not a very good race, but we'll take that today. 27th at Dover. Dover's its own thing, but he bounces back with another 20th place. 34th at Darlington. That's its own thing. I wonder if he parked in that. And I don't even know if he was in the Dotter car for that. 24th at Kansas. 35th at Texas. I'm pretty sure he had a mechanical issue. And then he finished 21st. And that's Jimmy Means, by the way. And 24th at Las Vegas for Jimmy Means. David Starr is, as much as I disagree with him this week, and I think he made a stupid move, he's not a bad race car driver. Talent-wise, if we had to rank these guys, he might be number one.
Mhm.
Maybe Martins is a little bit better, but talent-wise, it's close. Well, I mean, Landon Castle and Timmy Hill, but they're not in positions where we're picking up. Don't jam in David Starr, people. Please don't take this last moment and say, all right, all the David Starr. We're
All
a little bit.
it's Vegas. Got all in.
I'll repeat, we are not confident about any of these guys. We need to luck out. And I'm telling you, it's 100% luck. The guy that just hangs on to the lead lap and the caution comes right at if stage one goes green, then maybe Tommy Joe Martins is the only guy.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be other cautions in the race. There's going to be a couple opportunities. So it's going to be which one of these guys catches breaks and races halfway decent.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I think that's a great place to end. I don't think I can add anything else.
Yeah.
Other than that. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll do it again tomorrow. What time is it tomorrow? I just want
10 a.m.
10 a.m. I always forget because I always have to go off of your time. So 10 a.m. tomorrow. we'll be here again. Thanks for tuning in.